Okay, today we are on Whistler's Ridge, and we're here at the Ephraim Whisler House, otherwise known as the First Shot House, or Ephraim Whisler's Blacksmith Shop. Now, a little bit about him. He was born in the year 1832, and he married a woman named Louisa Weichert, who became Louisa Weichert Whisler, on August the 25th of 1853. Now, they had two children between them, one born in 1855, George, and the second in 1857, Andrew. Now, Ephraim Whisler was a master blacksmith, and his shop and home was built in the year 1857 or so along the Chambersburg Turnpike near his parents' home, and their parents were David and Eleanor Whisler. Now, in the year 1862 in September, he volunteered to serve for a month in McCreary's Independent Cavalry Company as a corporal, and he was registered for the draft in the year 1863. But the special thing about Ephraim Whisler is that you could technically say that the Battle of Gettysburg started in his front yard, because at 7:30 in the morning of July 1st, 1863, Lieutenant Marcellus Jones of the 8th Illinois Cavalry borrowed a carbine from one of his fellow soldiers and fired westbound down the Chambersburg Pike at a Confederate column. And thus began the Battle of Gettysburg. And we'll talk a little bit about that fired shot and the incident when we view the monument in just a moment. Now, here where we're looking at now, in 1863, would have been a property line fence. And this fence, of course, we're looking directly westward. A lot of these trees were not here at the time of the battle, so there was a very open view to the west along the Chambersburg Pike. And you can see down here, there is a National Park Service boundary marker. In 2002, the property was actually obtained by the National Park Service. So this is back in National Park Service battlefield land. For a long time, it was privately owned. And not many people come to visit here because of its recluse location. So I'm going to walk down here to this very busy Route 30, Lincoln Highway / Chambersburg Pike. And we're actually going to drive down there in a little while. This is the area that the shot by Lieutenant Marcellus Jones was fired at the Confederate troops down there at Marsh Creek. And that would be right there where the road dips after going up a hill again. So we're going to go back up here. You got to be careful when you're climbing this little slope. We're now looking at the first shot marker, and it does say Captain Jones. That would be a rank he would hold later, but here during the Battle of Gettysburg, he was a lieutenant. And it was here on the morning of July 1st, 1863 at 7:30 in the morning that Lieutenant Marcellus Jones borrowed a carbine from his sergeant, Levi S. Schaefer, and he fired a single shot westbound at a Confederate officer. That Confederate officer was most likely Colonel Burkett Fry of the 13th Alabama Infantry Regiment. Now, Jones had told Schaefer as he was taking the carbine, "Let me open the ball, boys." The shot would miss, and it would be a bloodless beginning to the bloodiest battle of the entire American Civil War. Now, when most visitors come to the National Park, Gettysburg, they don't actually get to see this monument because it sits about 3 miles west on the Chambersburg Pike from the Edward McPherson barn, which generally people think is where the battle began. That's the area in which John F. Reynolds was killed. That's the area in which the McPherson barn sits. That's the area where the John Burns Monument is. The Iron Brigade regiment's there. But the Battle of Gettysburg actually began here as members of the 8th Illinois Cavalry, which were back in the McPherson barn area. A squadron of them came to do a duty up here as they were picketing along the Chambersburg Pike on the morning of July 1st, 1863. Now what we're going to do is jump in the car, and we're going to head westbound along Lincoln Highway, Route 30, the Chambersburg Pike, in the area where this shot was fired, and we're going to end up there at Marsh Creek, which at the time of the battle was covered by a stone bridge. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Alabama soldiers that were there picketing as well, heading eastbound into the town of Gettysburg as a part of Heath's first column to hit the town of Gettysburg. So we're now traveling here in the car, and we're heading west along the Chambersburg Pike. To the left, there's going to be a farm here called the Locke Farm, and that was a Civil War farm as well that the shot passed right by. Now, of course, in 1863, if you're firing from an 1853 Enfield musket or an 1861 Springfield, they only have accuracy from 700 to a moderate accuracy of about 1,000 yards. So you're definitely going to miss whatever you're firing at. I think it was a warning shot to Confederate troops that Union troops were up ahead. And so we're going to slow down right here at the Marsh Creek Bridge, and now we are at Marsh Creek, and this is the area in which these Alabama soldiers were on the morning of July 1st, 1863, most likely between like 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. Now, of course, the Confederate Army had a lot more troops behind these men, and they were headed into Gettysburg, and they would get up from this position and move back eastward toward the town, back toward the ridge ahead, which is Whisler's Ridge, named after Whisler's blacksmith shop that sat on the ridge. And they would continue on through a series of ridges, taking ridge by ridge on July 1st, 1863. Of course, they would go to Whisler's Ridge, where they would meet very little opposition. Then they would head up to Hare's Ridge, today where the Hare's Ridge Tavern is, and get a little bit of opposition, but not enough. And then they would place artillery there, and then they would fire down. And then the big ridge that they would come to, the third ridge on the morning of July 1st, of course, would be Seminary Ridge, the site of the Lutheran Theological Seminary, the McPherson Barn, and Herbst, which would later become Reynolds Woods. I did a video probably about 10 years ago called the 15th Alabama at Gettysburg, and I traced the movement of the 15th Alabama eastbound, and you might want to go back and watch that video, as well as my video called the Emanuel Harmon Farm, which also mentions not only the 15th Alabama, but also Burkett Fry, who took command after his superior officer was captured. So we're heading back to the Whisler house now, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the house. The house, of course, just within the last few years has been restored to its 1863 appearance, and the National Park Service at Gettysburg did a phenomenal job in restoring it. And again, here to the right is the Lott Farm and the Lott Barn that we're passing now. And again, there was a battle before the Battle of Gettysburg, about a week before, a skirmish, and I did a video series called The Unknown Battle of Gettysburg. So you want to go back and watch Unknown Battle of Gettysburg, 15th Alabama, as well as the Emanuel Harmon Farm. And here We're across the street here at Knoxland Road, and we are going to be looking again at the Whisler house here. As we turn the camera, there you go. And you can see that this house has been beautifully restored, painted to look like a brick house again. It was like a tan color a few years ago. The porch has been redone. Unfortunately, the blacksmith shop was torn down and no longer remains. This was a very dangerous area to get to for a while. You had to park on somebody's private driveway, which is the house behind me. Hi, Mark. Or you had to park, along the side of Route 30, which can be very dangerous. And now they've made a nice parking lot behind the house. So the Ephraim Whisler house is a great place to visit, and actually should be the very first place that any visitor visits when they're at Gettysburg, and they should focus right there on that first shot marker, which, by the way, was placed in 1886. Now, I do have a late 1800s photo of this house taken from around this position that I'm going to go ahead and post on the video now, down there in the bottom right-hand company. You can see the picket fence along the Chambersburg Pike at the time. Of course, that is not there. And of course, the road has been graded a little bit, but pretty much looks pretty much the same as it did back during the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. Now I'm going to do a shameless plug for a friend of mine, Mark from Mays Auto Repair. That's the building I've zoomed in on here. If anyone needs automotive services of any type, any make and model car, please see Mark at MAE, Mays Auto Repair. And there's his house. So he lives close by and he's available. Great guy, great prices. This video has been brought to you by Mays Auto Repair. Now, one event that's unknown is that as Confederate troops were passing by here and the battle had started again and there was artillery from both sides firing, there was a artillery shell that actually hit the middle of the road somewhere near this house on the morning of July 1st of 1863. The shell landed so close to Ephraim Whisler that it knocked him unconscious and he suffered a concussion. He was actually paralyzed by shock, and some say he may have even had a heart attack. The shock was so devastating to his nervous system that he became totally prostrated, and he had taken to his bed soon afterwards and never rose from it. He would actually pass away from his injuries on August the 11th, 1863. So now we're looking inside the house, and they've been working on the house, trying to strip down modern walls and things inside, wallpapers as such, and try to strip it down to get it back to its 1863 look and appearance. And they've replaced some broken glass that was on the building. It does look like they're peeling away some modern paint, trying to expose what the walls look like. And they've been kind of quiet about it, so we don't know the exact extent of how much more work is going to be done on the property. But they've done a great job so far. Now, after the Battle of Gettysburg, the family of Ephraim Whisler, after he had passed away, had filed a damage claim in 1868 against the government. And that damage claim included the loss of hogs, corn, blacksmith and rifling equipment out of the shop. And like most claims, they were denied. So the family never benefited. Of course, as I said, Ephraim had died as a young man of 31 years old on August the 11th, 1863, and he was interred in the Marsh Creek Presbyterian Cemetery, actually right near the Reverend Alexander Dobbin and his family. Some of the losses were actually on July 4th of 1863, when the Confederate infantry and artillery and their wagon trains encamped along the turnpike as they were retreating from Gettysburg. Because in the claim it also says that a potato patch, and again, some of his tools have been taken, and a lot of poultry had been lost as well, right after the Battle of Gettysburg. So again, this is the Ephraim Whisler house, the first shot marker here at Gettysburg, which, you know, designates the spot in which Lieutenant Marcellus Jones of the 8th Illinois Cavalry fired his first shot of the Battle of Gettysburg. Marks the spot, the general area and location. And Whistler's Ridge that we stand on here, the rise in the ground, named after the home and blacksmith shop of Ephraim Whisler. And of course, the house have been restored as it appeared during the Battle of Gettysburg, as well as the improvement of the walking trail to and from the house, and the improved parking here, where there's actually a parking lot that has been put in along with a wayside marker, this area, in 1863. So again, my name is Frank Patrick Marone Jr., and I have been your guide and historian here at the Ephraim Whisler house, also known as Whistler's Blacksmith shop, as well as the First Shot house. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. You can watch my videos on, of course, Gettysburg Battlefield Truth on Truth Social, as well as on YouTube and Rumble. And here is that depiction of the area and the first shot here, but the new wayside that was placed here just a year ago. So we're going to take one last zoom out here of the house and the ground that surrounds the house, which used to have the blacksmith shop. There's May's Auto Repair again, plug. And then we're going to take a ride down to Marsh Creek Presbyterian Cemetery and look at the grave site of 31-year-old resident and blacksmith Ephraim Whisler of Gettysburg. Okay, we're here at Marsh Creek Presbyterian Cemetery, and this is the Weikert Whisler grave marker. And as we turn around to the side, you're going to see Ephraim Whisler, August 11th, 1863. And this is where he is buried here in the cemetery. Again, after being wounded by a shell that exploded right in front of his house, causing him to go into shock and maybe even a heart attack. This has been the Ephraim Whisler house, First Shot house, here on Gettysburg Historic Walking Tours. And I am historian Frank Patrick Marone Jr. Thank you for watching.